welcome to this deep dive, where we're going to be exploring the world of forensic pathology
Oh, yeah.
through the career of a real pioneer, Professor Keith Simpson. We'll be checking out some excerpts from a couple of his books, some police journals that detail some of his cases, and we even have a snippet of an interview he gave.
Interesting.
So get ready for some incredible stories and maybe a few surprises along the way.
I'm looking forward to it.
So one of the things that's really fascinating about Professor Simpson's work is the just huge variety of cases he handled over his 40-year career.
Oh, that's really remarkable.
From everyday accidents to these really elaborate murders, he saw pretty much everything.
He did, it's true. And during a time of, huge change in forensic science as well.
Right, yeah. He was the Home Office pathologist in London for a good chunk of that time.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, that's got to be an intense job.
Intense is putting it mildly. It was essentially a 247 kind of role.
Wow.
Dealing with all sorts of violent and unexpected deaths all across London. Not the kind of job for someone who likes a regular 9 to 5, that's for sure.
No kidding. So, okay, let's paint a picture here. It's the mid-20th century. A murder has just been discovered.
Right.
What happens next?
Well, unlike a lot of pathologists who waited for the body to be brought to the mortuary, Simpson often went straight to the crime scene.
Oh, wow.
He really believed that those initial observations of the surroundings could provide really crucial clues.
Before the scene was even, processed by the police.
Exactly, before anything was touched or moved.
So he'd be looking for things like hairs and fibers and blood splatter, the position of the body, all of that.
Exactly. He was absolutely meticulous about documenting every single detail.
Wow.
Because he understood that even seemingly insignificant things at the scene could become really crucial evidence later on.
Yeah.
And, this is especially important when you're talking about crimes like the Dobkin case, where the body was found in that bombed-out cellar.
Oh, right. Yeah. Let's talk about that case Mrs. Rachel Dobkin found in 1942 during World War II. Her skeletal remains were discovered in that bombed-out church cellar.
It's a tough one.
Which I imagine made identification really difficult.
Yeah, it really did.
How did Simpson even begin to piece together who she was?
Well, he started with a really thorough examination of the skeletal remains themselves.
Okay.
He used measurements of the bones, analyzed the structure, and was even able to determine her approximate age and height just from the bones.
But a skeleton can only tell you so much, right?
Yeah.
How did he actually confirm her identity?
Well, he found something really quite unique, a fibroid tumor on the uterus.
Oh, wow.
And that was a key detail because medical records later confirmed that Mrs. Dobkin had suffered from this kind of tumor.
Really?
So it was a vital piece of the puzzle directly connecting those remains to a specific person.
That's amazing. But identifying her was only the first step. How do you even determine cause of death in a skeleton?
Right. Well, this is where Simpson's meticulous observation and his deep knowledge of anatomy really came into play. He discovered a fracture in Mrs. Dobkin's larynx, a very specific kind of break. And this type of fracture, he concluded, was consistent with manual strangulation, not from a bomb blast.
Oh, so he was able to prove she hadn't died in the bombing, even though she was found in this bombed-out building.
That's right.
That must have been crucial for the case.
Absolutely. And there's another intriguing detail. The presence of slaked lime on the body.
Okay.
Intriguing because while the perpetrator probably thought it would speed up decomposition, it actually ended up preserving some pretty crucial evidence.
Oh, wow. So the very thing that was supposed to cover up the crime ended up helping Simpson solve it.
Exactly. A classic example of unintended consequences.
That's incredible. Makes you wonder how cases like this would be approached today with all the advancements in forensic technology we have.
Doesn't it? I mean, just imagine if we could apply modern DNA analysis to those skeletal remains.
Right.
We might be able to extract DNA and compare it to any living relatives, or even find traces of the killer's DNA.
Wow.
The possibilities are pretty mind-boggling.
Yeah, it's really remarkable how far forensic science has come. But let's shift gears for a moment.
Okay.
To another one of Simpson's most famous cases. The truly horrifying acid bath murders.
Oh, yes. John George Hay.
Committed by John George Hay. This case really shocked the nation. I mean,
It did.
Hay dissolved several of his victims in acid.
Gruesome.
He actually believed that if there were no bodies, there could be no conviction.
Illusional.
But he really underestimated the power of forensic science.
He did.
So, okay, let's get into the nitty-gritty here. The police discovered evidence at Haynes' workshop in Crawley, which ultimately led them to him.
Yeah.
But how do you even begin to investigate a crime scene where the victims have literally been dissolved?
It was a logistical nightmare, to put it mildly.
I can imagine.
I mean, just picture this. The police had to sift through 475 pounds of acid sludge.
475 pounds.
Yes, to try and find any remaining human remains.
That's just horrific.
It was a gruesome task, but Simpson, being the meticulous scientist that he was, persevered. And incredibly, within that sludge, they found gallstones, which are resistant to acid, a portion of a left foot, and even a red plastic handbag handle.
Oh, wow.
That belonged to Mrs. Duran Deacon, one of Hay's victims.
So even facing this just horrific attempt to destroy all the evidence, Simpson was still able to piece together enough to link Hay to his victims.
Right. It really shows the importance of thorough forensic investigation.
It really does. And it also kind of speaks to his dedication to the work.
It does. It speaks to his commitment to finding the truth no matter how difficult the circumstances.
Makes you think, how would modern technology have changed this investigation?
Well, for one, we have much more advanced techniques for analyzing trace evidence now.
Right.
Even with the destruction caused by the acid, we might have been able to recover microscopic fibers or particles that could link Hay to specific victims or even to particular locations.
It's like a game of cat and mouse, with forensic science always trying to stay one step ahead of the criminals.
Yeah, exactly. And as technology continues to advance, the methods we have for identifying victims, determining cause of death, and linking perpetrators to the crimes they commit become even more sophisticated.
It's incredible to think about how much has changed since Simpson's time.
It really is, but it's also important to remember that the fundamental principles that he championed, the meticulous observation, the understanding of human anatomy, and that relentless pursuit of the truth, those remain the cornerstones of forensic science to this very day.
They really do.
It's amazing, isn't it, how those fundamental principles are still so relevant, even with all the advancements in technology?
It really is. It makes you think about how techniques like DNA profiling, which obviously wasn't available back then.
No, not at all.
How that would have impacted some of these cases. Like, let's go back to the Dobkin case for a second.
Okay.
How would DNA analysis have changed things?
Oh, it would have been a game changer for sure. I mean, with DNA profiling, we could potentially have extracted DNA from Mrs. Dobkin's remains and compared it to any living relatives or even to a suspect like Harry Dobkin himself.
Wow.
It could have provided much more definitive proof of her identity and possibly even linked Dobkin directly to the crime scene.
Yeah, that would have been huge. Especially in a case like that where the defense tried to cast doubt on her identity and the cause of death.
Exactly. And in the acid bath Hay case, you know, with advanced imaging techniques like micro-CT scanning, we might have been able to create detailed 3D models of any remaining bone fragments.
Wow.
That could have revealed more information about the victims and how they were killed.
Really?
Potentially even providing evidence of Hay's specific methods.
That's incredible. We talked earlier about trace evidence. How would today's technology have helped in analyzing that kind of evidence in these cases?
Well, even with the damage from the acid, there's a good chance we could have recovered trace evidence like fibers or microscopic particles, even chemical residues. And with the sophisticated tools we have now, we could potentially link Hay to his victims or to specific locations with a lot more certainty.
It's remarkable to think about how these tiny, almost invisible traces can tell such a powerful story.
They really can, especially when you have the right technology to unlock their secrets.
Exactly. It really speaks to the advancements in forensic science and how they're constantly pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
Absolutely. And it's a testament to the incredible ingenuity and dedication of the people working in this field.
It really is. Speaking of pushing boundaries, Simpson was also a pioneer in using forensic entomology.
Oh, yes. The study of insects in criminal investigations.
Right. We touched on this briefly earlier with that case in Bracknell Woods.
Yeah.
Can you explain a bit more about how he used his expertise in that case?
Of course. So in that case, the police initially thought that the body had been in the woods for weeks or even months.
Right.
But Simpson, by observing the life cycle of the maggots that were found on the body, was able to accurately determine that the time of death was actually much more recent. And his expertise in forensic entomology directly contradicted the police's initial assumptions.
So he was able to use his knowledge of insect behavior to challenge those assumptions.
Exactly. It really highlights how diverse and interdisciplinary forensic science is.
It really does.
It's not just about examining the body.
Right.
It's about using every available scientific tool and piece of knowledge to piece together the puzzle of a crime.
And it's not just about the science itself, but also about how that science is presented and defended in court.
Oh, absolutely. That's a crucial part of it.
Simpson had a very particular way of approaching courtroom cross-examinations, didn't he?
He did. He viewed them almost like a battle of wits. Like a game
Wow.
of chess, where he had to anticipate his opponent's moves and defend his findings with scientific rigor. He really seemed to relish the challenge and saw it as an opportunity to demonstrate the power and the reliability of forensic evidence.
He almost seemed to enjoy the back and forth, the intellectual sparring that came with being a witness in court.
He did. And his sharp wit and ability to think on his feet were legendary.
I've heard stories. There's that famous anecdote about him being stopped by a police officer.
Oh, yes. While carrying a victim's head in a box.
It's hard to imagine having that kind of dry humor and unflappable demeanor when dealing with the macabre.
It takes a certain personality type to handle the grim realities of death and violence day in and day out.
For sure.
Yeah.
And to be able to maintain a sense of humor in those circumstances, that's something else.
It really is. But I think it speaks to Simpson's ability to compartmentalize, to separate the emotional weight of the work from the scientific objectivity that was required to do it effectively.
But he never lost sight of the human element of his work, did he? I mean, at the end of the day, it was about seeking justice for victims and holding perpetrators accountable.
Absolutely. He understood that behind every case, every piece of evidence, there was a story, a life lost, a family seeking answers.
Yeah.
His work was about providing those answers, using his knowledge to ensure that justice was served.
It's a powerful legacy, and one that continues to inspire forensic scientists today.
It does. As we dig deeper into Simpson's casebook and the world of forensic pathology, you start to appreciate the intricate dance between science observation and human understanding, and how these elements, carefully interwoven, can bring light to some of the darkest corners of human behavior.
It really makes you wonder what Simpson would think if he could see the state of forensic science today.
I think he'd be absolutely fascinated. He was a man who embraced new knowledge, and was constantly seeking to refine his methods. I have no doubt he'd be blown away by the advancements we've made, especially in DNA analysis and advanced imaging.
Can you imagine showing him a modern forensic lab with all of its cutting-edge technology?
Oh, he'd be like a kid in a candy store, I'm sure.
He'd probably want to get his hands dirty right away.
Absolutely. He'd be eager to incorporate all these new tools into his investigations, always striving for greater precision and understanding.
It's inspiring to think about how his work laid the foundation for so much of what's possible today.
It is. But even with all the technological advancements we've talked about, the core principles of forensic science remain unchanged. Meticulous observation, rigorous analysis, and a relentless pursuit of the truth.
They're crucial.
Those are the cornerstones of the field. And those were embodied by Professor Keith Simpson throughout his career.
They really were.
His work serves as a reminder that technology may change, but the fundamental principles of seeking justice and uncovering the truth, those are timeless.
Absolutely. And his stories, the cases that he worked on, they offer such a fascinating and often unsettling glimpse into another world.
They do.
But they also remind us of the power of human ingenuity. And that enduring quest for justice, no matter how challenging the circumstances.
It really is amazing to see how far we've come in forensic science. But as you said, those core principles, they haven't changed.
Not at all. And it really is a testament to the work of people like Simpson. He laid the groundwork for so much of what we do today. He did. His influence is everywhere, from crime scene investigation protocols to how forensic evidence is presented in court.
Absolutely. And that evolution continues. What areas of forensic science are you most excited about right now?
That's a great question.
Well, the advancements in DNA technology are just incredible. I mean, we can analyze these tiny samples now, even degraded ones.
Wow.
It's really opening up a whole world of possibilities for cold cases and historical investigations.
That's so cool. It's like giving a voice to the past, being able to revisit those old cases with fresh eyes.
Yeah, exactly. And then you have advancements in imaging techniques, things like 3D scanning and virtual autopsies. They allow us to examine evidence in ways that we never could have imagined just a few decades ago.
It's like having a whole new set of eyes, a way to see things that were previously hidden.
That's a great way to put it. And of course, there's the growing use of artificial intelligence and machine learning in forensic analysis. These tools are helping us process huge amounts of data, identify patterns, and even predict future criminal behavior.
It's fascinating and a little bit unnerving at the same time.
It is. There are always ethical considerations that we need to be very careful about as technology advances.
Yeah, of course.
But overall, I'm really optimistic about the future of forensic science. I think these new tools and techniques will help us solve more crimes, bring more criminals to justice, and create a safer world.
It's been amazing to delve into Professor Simpson's work and explore the world of forensic science with you.
It's been a pleasure.
It's such an intriguing field and at times quite disturbing, but it's also so essential to understanding justice and holding people accountable for their actions.
I completely agree. And as we've seen, it's a field that's constantly evolving, pushing the boundaries of knowledge and technology to find the truth.
That's what it's all about. So as we wrap up our deep dive here, I want to leave our listeners with a final thought. If you could choose any historical crime to re-examine with all the power of modern forensic science, what would it be? What mysteries would you want to unravel? Let those possibilities really spark your curiosity, because that search for the truth, that's what drives the world of forensic science. And it's a journey that never really ends.